We have touched on this and avoided it so many times, but I think we should go ahead and touch on this. I'm just going to do it. I've said it before, I'll say it again. You don't have to buy into this. It's one way of understanding the word. Mm-hmm. Read Genesis 1 and 2 very carefully.
Very carefully.
I mean, like, extraordinarily carefully. Like, make a list of what God created in the sequence he created it, and compare Genesis 1 and Genesis 2. Because here's a spoiler. You should try it. You definitely, everyone, don't. Man, the stupidest thing you could ever do is hear somebody say something as unhinged as I'm about to say.
And just take their word
for it.
I would have loved to get a peek into Jesus' mind. The moment the disciples were like, hey, we saw them casting out and demons and doing mighty works, like in your name. And they're not part of us. They're not on our team. Do we need to stop them?
Yeah.
And Jesus is like.
And the fact that we won't acknowledge it is so hurtful to our ability to have a conversation with them.
Right. Like the people that I've like encountered who are kind of going through just deconstructing their faith, I think they finally have come to the conclusion of asking that question of like, I've been a Christian my whole life. Why?
You don't know how you're going to respond to situations until you're in them. So I don't know how I'm going to respond to my dying moment until I'm there. But I am going to tell you this. I've died 1,000 deaths that I never had to die because of being so obsessed with my own mortality and the speed at which life seemed to be passing by. And a couple years ago, it just left.
What if I told you you were meant for something more? And what if at first sight your birthright was inked in blood? And what if dominion was written in big bold letters? And what if we shouldn't just occupy but overcome? And what if the observation of opposition was us? Antikemi, the podcast.
Welcome back. You are tuned in to the Antikemi podcast.
Yes.
My name is Jonathan.
I'm Schulz.
And we are incredibly grateful that you're still rocking with us. You're still here.
Yeah.
And we just gonna jump right in. All gas, no breaks.
Give it a like, give it a share, jump in the comments right now, say hi, tell us where you're joining from.
Yes, sir.
Share it on something with a comment. Share it with somebody that could use it, that would be blessed.
Because you have no idea who you're going to introduce this type of content for. I was kind of excited because I was doing a little bit of research in regards to just how to like hone in and kind of be precise with how we're presenting everything. And some of the feedback that I was getting was like, you've got something that's special. Don't try to necessarily like make a lot of wholesale changes,
right?
Because what you have is something that can truly be of value.
It's cool.
In a very, very, very saturated market,
right? Right.
I feel like I see like different podcasts kind of pop up. And it's kind of like a niche thing now for pastors.
Yeah.
To kind of get into like the podcasting space. And so it's not like we're like jumping in like on an early wave of the trend.
Right.
But I like to think that what we're presenting is a slightly different angle than a lot of the more mainstream, cut and dry type of like content that you can come across.
Well, the bottom line is we know you're getting almost unlimited inputs.
Yeah.
Depending on how chronically online you may be or whatever, but to varying degrees, most people that wind up here are probably getting a lot of inputs. Yeah. And so, we felt like, man, if we're going to be another input, let's be very careful about how we do that. And the way that I believe God has convicted us to do it is such that by his grace, we might be able to function as an input that helps people exercise discernment and add wisdom to their knowledge and understanding to their and be able to use discernment and good judgment to actually, hopefully this is an added input that actually helps filter out a lot of noise. What we're believing God to be able to do is help people dial their tuner in.
Yes, sir.
So hopefully this is an input that actually winds up helping you kind of shed some of the noise and focus on where he's wanting to take you. That's what.
And that's the promise that we're going ahead and just throwing on the table from the beginning. Like, we understand people's time is valuable. So my time is valuable. And so if I'm kind of jumping in and listening to a podcast or listening to any content, I want to kind of know from the very beginning what I should expect out of it. And so our hope and objective of every piece of content that we create and produce is that you are going to leave that episode or whatever content we produce with a game plan for you to be able to resist against the noise, against the system of Babylon, against everything of this world that is vying for your attention, pulling you down, putting you inside the status quo, not allowing you to swim upriver. This podcast exists for you to resist.
Yeah.
That's the point.
And by hopefully an antidote for confusion, for exhaustion, for overwhelm, for that's what we're trying to do here.
It's funny because we talked about, offline, why us? Why somebody would take the time to spend, listening to what we may have to say about something. And a lot of times that really answering that question can kind of leads us to what I know we want to kind of get into specifically today.
Yeah.
We can have a mentality of like, our side is better than your side from the very beginning.
Right.
Without even really having any context outside of like, I like them better than what they present.
Yeah.
Why do you think that's like naturally kind of baked in to the human psyche, or
I mean, I think that's what we're after tonight, because it is. I think you said, why is it baked in? But I just want to kind of back up a step from that and just say we are making the case that it is baked in. All this, we're better than y'all, all that is a function of the design of human beings. And we happen to be people who believe that human beings were created by God in the image of God. So that's kind of funny. If that is your worldview, well, how come he put something in us that comes through that way? And I think that hopefully by the end of this podcast, we're going to meditate on that in some helpful ways. But bottom line, bro, the heart that I feel coming into this episode tonight is this. I came in here in a horrible mood, like really not a good mood. I don't know where you were at, but that I'm exhausted. I am very depleted.
Yeah.
I didn't have time to have Monday on Monday, and today I couldn't get that luxury either. So I am now going on my third evening of being overdue to have Monday, which, anybody that's in ministry knows, especially probably preachers and pastors know, you got a Monday. After you Sunday, you got a Monday, man.
Yeah.
And so I'm raw. I'm worn down. I feel depleted. And there's a lot of reasons for that. But last week we touched on a lot of reasons why a lot of people might feel some of those things at this time of the year. But I feel like there is actually a deeper dive that can be gone into, because remember, we're not necessarily just a lot of people.
Yeah.
In other words, there's the human condition, but then there's the condition of being a part of a system that is at odds with everything around it. And when God has called you into his kingdom, out of darkness and into his marvelous light, back to your inheritance, out of the pig pen, back to the Father's house, all of that stuff. One thing that we have to remember is that the whole system of the world is designed to prevent us from making it there, from walking in the freedom that we've been granted. And whom the Son sets free is free indeed. That indeed part, like, are you able to move? Deeds. Are you able to move like a free person? In Texas, we the story of Juneteenth lives right here in Texas, and we all know, if we're aware of that history at all, that there's a very big difference between being free and moving free, and a lot of it, know what I mean?
Yes, that's good.
Because number one, if you don't know, but then number two, once you know, but you're in a hostile environment, those people, even once the ship showed up in Galveston Harbor, bringing the news that you're free, but now you're still in a hostile environment that doesn't want you to be able to succeed in that freedom. How do you do that, right? And so, the whole world is dealing with human nature and the human experience. And last week we talked about family and gatherings and the pressure of holidays, and even touched on how consumerism plays in and all that. But if you go a layer deeper and you start looking at, but as a child of God, as a regenerated member of the kingdom of light, there's actually a whole added dimension of challenge now that's coming at us to claw at us and pull us away from that peace that I will keep them in perfect peace whose mind is stayed on, all of that stuff, that clarity, that purpose, that direction, and progress, honestly, through the process of, and I believe that one of the layers of it, we could pick from so many different aspects, but one of the layers of it is that there's something baked into human nature that you touched on a second ago, or a minute ago, that makes us want to be on a team, in a tribe. You could almost call it a gang mentality. You were talking to me about it earlier, and you used that word, and I thought that was helpful.
Because nobody wants to feel othered.
Well, that's it. Like, you just answered the question you asked me.
Yeah.
But, of course, we can keep digging. Why? Yeah. But nobody does want to feel othered. And I think we could go one layer deeper than that right away and say nobody wants to feel isolated. I think we're getting closer and closer. You know what I mean? We're digging for the bone, and now we're getting pretty close. Everybody wants to be on a team. Nobody wants to feel isolated, or nobody wants to feel othered, because nobody wants to feel isolated. Now we're getting down to the crux of the issue, I think. And the bottom line is that, as with so many things, and if we're talking about the plot promise of where this episode is going, by the grace of God, there are so many aspects of life that are clawing at us, clutching at us, to prevent us from walking in newness of life, from living the Antikemi life. And one thing that almost all those aspects have in common is that they pervert something pure that God placed within human nature and weaponize it to bend it away from life and toward death, to make it to make it become a victim of its own success, basically.
That's crazy, being a victim of your own success.
Right.
Because, like you're saying, it's bending back onto each other.
Yes. God put it in you.
Yeah.
Why is it hurting you? because it's not being used, it's being abused.
My God.
It's not being held, it's being manipulated. It's not being stewarded, it's being hijacked.
Yeah.
Well, why? Well, that goes to, we are Antikemi, we are the kingdom of heaven, but that means to lie opposite to something. What is it we're lying opposite to? Well, the Bible has a lot of metaphors for it, but the one it lands on is Babylon. You know what I mean?
Well, first things first. We're talking about lying opposite. Sometimes you have to figure out if we are going to assemble into these factions, gangs, teams, whatever adjective you want to throw inside there, you need to first figure out where the right team is.
Right.
Because I think a lot of times our focus is so skewed, we're properly aligning, but we're focused on the wrong thing and making that the adversary when it's actually not. And maybe I'm jumping ahead. We can kind of dive into that a little bit later to unpack why we miss the target or label who is truly on the outside instead of what we should be focused on instead. You know what I mean?
100%. Most of us are very convinced we're on the right team. And by the way, we're always on teams.
Yeah.
And we'll get there. We'll go back into it. But that is just the truth about human nature. If there is two of us, there are teams. If there's three, there's drama. Because now you got, not only is, now we have, before we had two different flags, now we're vying for, who's going to march with those flags. One of us is going to have more than the other.
It's the majority, yeah.
The majority. Now you're dealing with majority. And so all of that stuff, I'm just going to say it. If there are two or more of us, there will be teams pulling at us. This thing is baked in real deep. And we're always going to want to have teams, especially when you get into there being enough of us that we could have potentially a better team or a more successful team or the bigger team, or as soon as you get that, it's all over. Human nature, right? But the funny thing is, I think we're all pretty much convinced we're on the right team. What is interesting about that idea is when you interrogate it a little bit is, I think, a super valuable question to ask yourself. And this could be how you vote, what party you're in. This could be, if you're from a family that's fractured, that there's dysfunction in a way that winds up with you've got mom's team and dad's team, which is horrible, but it happens all the time. If you're in a situation like that, it could be that. It could be, in church, are you like, let's just say even your local church, are you one of the young guns that's wanting to take it a new direction, or are you the old guard? There's just always teams, right? If you interrogate, so you're convinced you're on the right team, but if you interrogate how you wound up on that team, if you're honest with yourself, I think a lot of the time, I would say probably a majority of the time, we're going to find out that whether or not we're on the right team, we're not there because it's the right team. That's not how we wound up on that team. And that's where it starts to get complicated, and you have to decide whether you're willing to be that honest with yourself or not. Let me just go there. Like, let's just go there right off the bat. I'm a Christian. Mm-hmm. That is the right team. I'm convinced of it.
But why?
How'd I get on this team?
Yeah.
If I was born in some far-flung island, would I be on this team? Now, that gets real uncomfortable real fast. Can I just give an encouragement? It's okay to ask questions that you're not prepared to answer. It's very helpful to just acknowledge that question exists.
Like it's a real issue.
It is an issue.
Yeah.
Like,
right.
You know what I mean?
Like with yourself, though.
Yeah.
Like you acknowledging to yourself, like, hey, this is a thing.
This makes me feel really weird.
Yeah.
But it does exist.
Right.
And so many times in my life I've learned just acknowledging that question exists allows me to lay down some defenses and allows me to be just a little more open than I was before. And then over time, sometimes a few years will pass and God will give me an amazing answer to a question that I never would have seen coming, been able to arrive at. He'll give me that answer when I'm not expecting it, when I'm not looking for it. And here's what makes me crazy is I know I've missed that blessing a lot of times because when it happens and I notice it, what I realize after a few times of this experience is he was going to give me the insight that answered the question. Either way, he was going to offer it to me. It was going to cross my path. But I would not have known that he answered that question if I had been unwilling to acknowledge the question.
Though there was even a question.
He would have given me the whole answer, and I would have gone my whole life not being able to carry that answer because I was unwilling to carry the question unanswered.
My goodness.
And again, let's ask why. Why do we have such a hard time carrying a question like I just asked a minute ago? If you're a Christian and you're convinced you're on the right team, but are you entirely on that team because it's the right team? Or is it possible that there's some other factors involved in how you wound up on that team? And one of the things that we can say right off the bat is, if we're right that it's the right team, and I think we are when it's done right, then one thing we could say is, man, the grace of God at work in our lives to allow those circumstances. So there's beauty even in when it's somewhat unanswered. We can go, wow, like.
I think having that question lies at the foundation for most people who are deconstructing.
Oh, man. And the fact that we won't acknowledge it is so hurtful to our ability to have a conversation with them.
Right. Like the people that I've encountered who are kind of going through just deconstructing their faith, I think they finally have come to the conclusion of asking that question of I've been a Christian my whole life. Why?
Yep.
Was this something that I actually want to be associated and attached to? And a lot of times they're jaded based upon the representation of Christianity that's represented here in or westernized Christianity.
Yeah.
Their frame of reference may just be the Christianity we see in America.
Right.
And it's not actually modeled in other places of the world where Christianity has to actually be modeled the way that Jesus described it, as opposed to the westernized version of it that they see here. But they also are asking questions like, did I decide for this?
Right.
Did my parents
push
me in the right direction, or push me in a direction they thought that I should go and I just kind of co-opted it? Was it just the thing to do inside my small town?
Yeah.
Was it was I peer pressured into doing it? And now that I've seen more of the world, my worldview is growing and changing. And so now I'm asking those questions.
Yeah.
Has that been your experience that you've seen?
Oh, for sure. In fact, I've lived a lot of that because I did go through a full deconstruction process.
Right.
And then Jesus was still there waiting for me at the end of it. But I get it. When I see people in deconstruction, I get it.
Because how you grew up, there really wasn't an other choice outside of towing the line.
Yeah.
As far as how they presented the faith or their version of it.
Right.
There was really no option for you to well, that's y'all's thing. I'm gonna.
Yeah, I grew up in a semi-isolated environment where we were almost a little bit of an alternate micro society unto ourselves. And so, now to the credit of the people who raised me, they did teach us to dialogue with other ideas in a way.
Really?
Yeah. It's a strange...
That's interesting.
Yeah.
Because the way I kind of grew up, which was nowhere near your experience, but yeah, there was definitely not encouragement of dialoguing or interfacing with any other world.
I know.
I'm very curious by that.
It was a mixed bag, and I'm still trying to parse through all of it. But one thing about the way that I grew up was that I was taught, I had to read Marx and Engels in school. I had to, we debated evolution and creation, young Earth, old Earth.
Really?
There was just a lot of that.
Other ideas were introduced.
A lot. But I know.
I am flabbergasted by that.
Well, I didn't become who I am by accident.
That makes so much more sense. I'm sorry, I'm having a moment right now.
Yeah. This just veered personal.
I'm discovering things, right?
Yeah.
That makes a lot of sense on the formation of kind of like who you are, asking those questions.
Yeah.
Because I guess they presented kind of a springboard.
Yeah, I still haven't totally figured out how to even describe it. Never mind understand it.
Yeah.
But there were taboos. There was like hard lines that you couldn't go across. But up to that point, there was we learned how to interrogate ideas and how to interface with them, and because of now my challenge, and one of the reasons that I kind of was a problem student, a problem child, is that I could never get off the train before the last station. Once we were rabbit holing.
Like, that's enough.
I was
enough, Shul.
Right. I was gonna dig to China. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So that was like, there was those things where it's like, okay, we've had that exercise, now let's back.
Because in their mind, it was just an exercise in, okay, we're just exploring that out there. You're like, wait a minute, there's a there. There's a there.
I'm the dog in the yard there's a bone. I know there's a bone down here.
Oh, man.
So that was an advantage in how I was raised. That I noticed when I got into broader Pentecostal and evangelical circles. Oh, actually, a lot of these people don't necessarily know how to do that counterintuitively.
Nope.
Like, I grew up way stricter,
Uh-huh.
but somehow they might be more afraid to hear a countervailing position.
Well, your wife just kind of brought that up recently when she told the story about how she was excited about going to this party when y'all first started dating. And she was like, it's going to be so much fun. And you were like, I don't really want to go. And she's just like, but it's going to be so much fun. And you were like, what is fun? I said, what is fun? And you kind of like brought her to a place of like, no, interrogate your definition of fun. And let's put it up to the actual definition of fun.
Right.
Is it fun?
Right.
And she had to like come to, I'm retelling her story. But what she said was, yeah, I guess it's really not that fun when you look at it.
Well, and she even told me, like, I had never had to define fun before.
Oh, man, that's crazy. Yeah.
And now I'm trying to explain it to you, and I'm like, well, what is it? Right?
Yeah.
So I'm very grateful for that aspect of the way I was raised. But I don't think I was necessarily the envisioned end product of what they were trying to do. Mm-hmm. I was kind of like, I'm kind of like when the Wuhan virus got out. It went sideways.
Like we didn't have a contingency plan for this.
We were messing with gain of function.
Yeah, right.
And one of them got out. You know what I mean?
Yes.
So,
No, you're good.
I know what that is. So, that's kind of there's like a tension there that to some extent I was taught, and then by the grace of God, where the people who were teaching me might have become uncomfortable and not wanting me to go further down that road, but by God's grace, I just learned over time, and it's been a process, and it's been all of my life growing in it, to be increasingly comfortable with acknowledging tension that I am not prepared to resolve. I don't know how to resolve it. And I think it's been a huge key in my life to being able to live free, because there is, I truly believe that whatever it is that causes people to not want to acknowledge these questions that they don't know how to resolve, that whatever that is fear-based. And we can talk about what it is, but I'll just say, I think one aspect of it is, very much so, if acknowledging this question winds up separating me from the herd, if they take my jersey, because I won't stop naming the elephant in the room, who am I then? Whose team am I on? And let's just say it, outright for a lot of us, will I bust hell wide open and pay with my soul? And at some point, I started to realize the God whose glory it is to conceal a matter, and who said it's the glory of royalty to seek it out, the God who hides himself in darkness so that we may seek his face, the God who says, seek me and you will find me, he's not going to throw me into eternal damnation for acknowledging questions in an effort to make sure that I'm grounded in truth.
Right.
That's not. Even before I could articulate the gospel, I started to realize, if there's a hell, that can't be how you get there. If this God is who he says he is, you know what I mean? So I believe that there's a reason that everything that God puts in us tends to wind up being weaponized at different times and in different ways to try to destroy us and bring separation, fear, and darkness into our lives. And that is because there is a system that is just as Antikemi to the kingdom of heaven as the kingdom of heaven is to that system. Right. And for every true representation of prime reality, like in the kingdom of heaven, reality is not a construct. It is, because the kingdom of heaven ultimately is God.
Yeah.
And so, within that realm, there's every truth and every actual reality has a counterpart in the other kingdom that that looks very similar is actually based on the same design, because remember, Satan is not a creator. So every blueprint he has is ultimately stolen. It may be, he may erase and redraw lines, but ultimately he can only move boundaries. He can't create boundaries. Right. He can only bend lines. He can't place them there. He can. So ultimately there's always going to be a counterpart in the kingdom of darkness that is going to look incredibly deceptively similar, and often, to some degree or another, function very similarly, which is how you can go very far down a path of deception while becoming more and more powerful and more successful, and maybe even happier and more at peace for a while, because you're not always in the bend in the beginning.
Yes, sir.
Often you're experiencing something that has a lot of power to it because it is based on the principle of God's reality. But you are always going to hit a point. It's like getting on a train and riding a train. At some point, the conductor is going to come down and ask for your ticket. You're always going to hit a point if you're in the counterfeit realm where you're going to have to pay the piper, and it's always going to lead to more bondage, being more drained, more taken advantage of, so it's always going to suck the life out of you in the end, but not always, very often not up front, because very often you're actually learning principles that actually started out in the kingdom of heaven, that the kingdom of heaven, the people in the kingdom of heaven often don't know enough to teach you those principles. So you may wind up learning the perverted version of them from the kingdom of dark, right?
Absolutely, because number one, it's packaged differently.
Right.
And we've been lied to so much because, and this has just been my experience.
Yeah.
There has been, I think, a consistent fear with introducing anything that would be considered alternate from what's the most safest way to maintain your Christendom.
Yes.
Inside, because I mean, and this is where the denominations break off, and this is where you have different rule sets and standards are established that have nothing to do with the corpus of Scripture,
right,
and everything to do with the corpus of their specific convictions. And you can even drill down further. They may not even be real convictions. They could be really convictions that are really condemnation.
Yes.
That's never been properly addressed or dealt with, fleshed out. And so all they know to do is, okay, this makes me feel icky.
Yep.
And so everybody else needs to stay away.
Yep.
Because this is something that I'm struggling with.
Yes.
And they're not able to justify whatever boundaries that are being set up with anything substantial. And I know that's what you've experienced at times. I know anybody that's ever been inside, it's not just the apostolic denomination.
No,
it's
not.
It's all throughout different denominations and different world religions, to be honest.
Organized religion and fundamentalism in particular.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Fundamentalism magnifies what you're talking about. But organized religion,
it's kind of like what we do.
Because it's a team.
Yeah.
Because it's a gang in its earthly iteration.
Right.
I'm not trying to cut you off.
No, you're good.
It's here's the thing, man. I see I see a godly principle, because we've talked some big ideas. So let me ground this for a second back in kind of what we're on tonight. Mm-hmm. There's a godly principle within us, and we're about to talk about where it comes from. That, biblically speaking, that we want to be members of something larger than ourselves. You know, there's an evolutionary science way to look at that, and whatever, interesting conversation. If you're talking straight up secular, humanistic, Darwinian, you know, evolution, I believe the conversation's going to fall short at a point. Mm-hmm. But there's interesting ideas there. But you don't actually, in my opinion, need evolution to start to get a pretty good understanding of where this comes from, because I think the Bible gives us a really good foundation to understand where it comes from. But that being said, God put something in us that makes us want to group up and be members of something larger than ourselves, and find some kind of identity there. And then the kingdom of darkness. And so the Bible uses this term, especially as we round the bend into Revelation, over and over. It starts in Genesis with Babel, moves through Daniel and Ezra and Nehemiah and all that into this idea of Babylon. You know, Babel is this place where man tried to build an Antikemi kingdom against God, against the kingdom of heaven. And God frustrated it using a very specific methodology that's interesting, because it split us into teams.
Like literally?
Literally split us into teams. And then based off of practicality, because our teams were who we could understand and who could understand us. And then by the time we get to Revelation, this system is fully developed as this Babylon the Great, Mystery Babylon, Babylon, the mother of harlots, and her daughters. So this idea is, it develops from an event that produces a concept into a system, into a metastatic system. It develops a lot like a cancer. By the time we get to Revelation, it is metastatic. It has so thoroughly invaded the corpus of humankind, the body of humankind, that Revelation is God going, yeah, we're going to nuke it.
Yeah.
You know, get away, stand back, because I'm done. We're saving the patient now. You know, the final stage of treatment, right? Mm-hmm. So all of that is to say, this system that we call Babylon, you know, Egypt is another metaphor for it. It's just a less complete metaphor. There's all kinds of stuff like that, but the Philistines are a part of it, you know. But Babylon is the whole system. And that system is the embodiment of Antichrist. It is when we say the Antichrist, we're just talking about a figurehead that thoroughly embodies the mentality, the approach, the ambitions, the thought process of that system. Antichrist is in place of Christ. And if we could take that a step further, because it is absolutely in place of the Christ, the anointed one.
Right.
But we are also one anointed people within Christ, within the Christ. So Antichrist is also very much so anything that is trying to suck and deplete us of the oil that God placed within us. That is an ancient way of speaking of the very life force the oil of joy, the oil of gladness. The ancients all believed that there is a substance, for lack of a better term, inside of a human being that represents the very essence of what it means to be us. And that is what the serpent was striking a blow at in the garden. The serpent made a play to cut us open and drain that oil from us.
Would you call it like our sentience?
I do believe that at the end of the day, consciousness as God has given it to the human race, the children of Adam, would be a product of what we're calling the oil, the anointing.
And it also sets us apart from even the animal kingdom specifically.
100%.
Because of the way we are able to process and take dominion.
Yep.
Like that dominion mandate was given to the human race.
And when we're born, we have a spark of it with a lot of purity. Mm-hmm. We grow up through about 5 years old, something like that. That little drop of oil grows and grows and grows. That little spark fans and fans and fans, and that flame develops and develops. And then from that point on, as soon as self-awareness begins to really kick in, the purity begins to diminish, the innocence begins to diminish. And so even though the capacity for oil continues to grow, we can embody more of that energy, more of that consciousness, more of that awareness, more of that God nature. And yet it is being systematically drained from us. So the vessel is getting larger, but the oil is running lower. And so the older that a human being gets, the less they represent something profoundly different from the animal kingdom, right? We tend to slide more and more into our passions and desires. And
animalistic nature, yeah.
Yes. Mm-hmm. And then when we are regenerated, when we are born again and brought back across the flaming sword and into the garden where we can access the tree of life, and those wounds begin to be healed by the Holy Ghost, again, now the oil has an opportunity to multiply within the vessel, and we can carry more and more of it and embody more and more of it. But the entire system of the world, it's no longer a serpent in the midst of the garden. We are in a snake pit. We are living in a snake pit. When we say we fell, think of going from interacting with a snake to falling into a pit. So we're in their world now.
Yeah.
We're in their system now. And so the more of that is in us, the more drawn they are, because they're like heat-seeking missiles. They see it. They know where it is. They know what the assignment is. We got to drain that one. We got to milk that one. We got to frustrate that one. We got to stop them in their endeavors. So the kingdom of darkness, Babylon, is every bit as evangelistic as we are at our best. We are fishers of men. They are hunters of souls.
Oh, my God.
The whole system is designed that they smell it, they see it, they taste it, they hear it, and they can't stand it because their source of existence, their source of, I'm talking about the kingdom of hell here, Babylon, the entities that are inspiring humanity in that direction, their whole only access to life force, power, influence, but their very existence, but then certainly any ambition they have depends upon convincing us to allow ourselves to be drained of that and also for us to pervert it on its way out, because in its pure form, it'll kill them. That's the thing. They can't come in contact with the oil as it is. That's why when we put oil on somebody and we're truly embodying the visitation of the Holy Ghost as two believers touch and agree, sickness flees, demons manifest.
Something has to happen.
Stuff happens.
Yeah.
And so as we increase, as we grow in grace and knowledge and favor with God and man, as Jesus did in his youth, as that happens, the system is increasingly focused on us. It becomes a primary assignment to frustrate this process that is happening. And so believers often mistake that signal that, I must be doing something wrong, or God is not for me, or whatever, because you have become increasingly visible on their infrared sensors and so on. And we just have to learn how to walk. This is why we struggle so much with dominion, or one of the big reasons, because we constantly get drained and we constantly allow guilt and shame and anger and fear and all of that to pervert that oil into something they can take and harvest and use. And so that we constantly do that, I think, because we are struggling so much with growing weary and well-doing because of the assault of Babylon against us. And we have to learn how to walk as Jesus walked, because somehow, until it was his hour, every time they clutched at him, he slipped through their hands. Every time they were trying to make a play for him, he was 3 steps ahead. Every time they were looking for him, he was already on the other side of the sea. We have to learn how to walk as Jesus did, or we're going to be constantly the hunted.
Yeah, I need to let that sizzle for a second, because that's so good. We don't even realize we're the hunted either.
Or why?
Yeah. It's such a game of, I don't even want to say cat and mouse, but we walk around with a false sense of security.
Yes.
I think too much.
Yes, sir.
Not realizing the gigantic target on our backs. And we're playing around with things that are absolutely detrimental and draining. And like you mentioned, we wonder why we're exhausted. We wonder why we're lacking creativity. We wonder why we have no focus. We wonder why we're not able to operate, much less our full potential, but at any potential.
Yes.
While we're struggling with just as much depression as people who are not filled up with the Spirit of God. Our divorce rates are just as comparable as people who don't claim to confess Christ. It's there should be something that allows us to be different if we are going to truly be attached to the right team. It's and I think that's what frustrates a lot of people who are claiming Christianity, because they're I'm on the right team, but I'm still getting pummeled. I'm still experiencing just the onslaught of hell being unleashed. And so, do I want to be on this team? It's almost easier for me to, you know what, let's go to the other side. At least I can get the joys of this life.
I thought I was safe.
I thought I
That's
was
that
safe.
false sense of security.
Yeah.
I thought I was safe. I got on this team.
Right.
And if they don't want to leave the team, they at least want to go back to the dugout.
Take me out the game.
Take me out the game.
And there's no such. It's funny because like it's the age-old joke. Gamers, they're like saying, people don't understand, like, you can't pause a game when you're playing online. It's not like the simulation where you're playing and you can hit pause and you go to the bathroom or eat food or whatever. You can't pause an online match.
Right.
There's no pause.
Right.
You are playing or you're inside the simulation until the mission is over with or the match is over with. You don't pause it. There's no off ramp.
No.
You're in it.
You'll get suicided.
Yeah. Absolutely.
You can bleep that out for YouTube. Yeah.
All you can do is continue to press on.
Well, and let's use that analogy because, I like simulation theory, not because I think, we're in a simulation that, that's all there is to it. All of this is none of this is real. It's not that I accept the fact that this whole system is a game. I don't believe that aligns with a biblical worldview. Mm-hmm. I mean, I'll be honest with you. That's kind of why I don't buy it. It's not because I don't think the arguments are really good. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Simulation theory is one of those things like Gemma she won't talk about it because she got on a roll thinking about it and it freaked her out.
Probably broke her brain.
It did. Yeah. And so it's one of those questions that she's not willing to acknowledge right now exists, right?
Right.
And I keep telling her, whenever you're ready, let's have this conversation, but you have to be willing to acknowledge the elephant. Like, I'm not going to tell her ahead of time that I believe I have the antidote to the thing that's terrifying her. I'm going to wait until you can't help the butterfly out of the chrysalis. It will never fly and it will die out of the cocoon because its wings won't develop. Yeah. So
the struggle is what makes it strong enough.
So I'm not going to tell her it's okay. Come on. It has to become enough. She has to fall in love with truth enough that she's willing to acknowledge something that scares her at a existential level. So Lord willing, if it happens in my lifetime, it may be 20 years from now. And she may say to me, all right, let's talk about it. You know what I mean? If the Lord tarries. But I have to let her do that. But she won't acknowledge it. She went a couple miles down that, and she was like, nope. Because actually, if you ever really entertain that dog will hunt for a long time. It's an interesting theory. Mm-hmm. But I don't believe it aligns with the biblical worldview. However, there's a reason that dog will hunt that well. Because while prime reality, as it exists inside the mind of God in an unadulterated state, is the realest thing. It's so real that it's just God. Like if you truly get drawn all the way into prime reality, you'll just lose yourself in him. And that's what we're aiming for.
Yeah.
But while that is real, to me, everything short of that is an overlay and is kind of by definition a simulation.
It's like Inception.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a constructs. And we live in the versions of them we are prepared to be able to accept and that we can function within.
And that's why there's nothing new under the sun.
100%.
Yeah.
And so it's exactly why. And so all of this, we are stuck in the game. You can't, like Solomon said, there is no exit from this war. Mm-hmm. No one gets discharged from this war. And yet, with every temptation, he has made a way of escape. There is an escape. Because what we're caught in is what the Bible is calling Babylon. Everything that begins to be a simulation on, everything that is not fully subsumed in the divine nature of God, in my opinion, is ultimately the architecture of this system the Bible calls Babylon. And we are on our way out. We are coming back from exile. That's the story of the Bible.
Yeah.
The story of the exile of the Hebrews and the Jews and their time, their sojourn in Babylon and their return and the construct of the temple and all. That's our story. Yeah. That's the story of the human race.
Right.
It's not even about them. That's what it meant to be the chosen people. God said, I'm going to use you we're going to host a play and we're going to show the world what's happening. And so everything that isn't the prime reality of what exists within the pure mind of God itself, everything else is a part of this alternate system we call Babylon, or the Bible calls Babylon, and it is ultimately levels of a game that you either have to beat the levels, get killed in the simulation, or find the back door. Narrow is the gate. Straight is the way. Few there be that find it. Find the tunnel that Jesus Christ provided us.
Right.
And learn how to escape that overlay and move through the simulation from within prime reality, which is what it means, from within perfect love, absolute presence, unconditional peace.
To keep with the same theme, here's an interesting side quest to that point. I just saw something that said that the video games of today are vastly different than the ones that we grew up playing. And the ones that we grew up playing, like back in the early 90s, 80s. Well, yes. Those of us who were outside of the
inner sanctum.
micro communities. Those of us who experience electricity and that sort of thing.
Haters gonna hate.
I know. There was no, well, let's put it this way. The games that our kids are playing now have like saves every couple minutes, like auto saves. And if you die, you just respawn right where you died. You keep on going. There's so many like cheat levels for you to be able to. It's designed for them to keep playing.
Yeah.
Because, of course, that's where the money is.
Right.
The games that we grew up playing, there was no easier levels. And if you died, you had to start all the way over again.
Yeah.
And so our brains learned how to map and problem solve, because you couldn't keep doing the same things that you were doing. You're not going to beat the boss.
Yeah.
And so you had to learn how to, no, I need to go around until, like you said, you found that back door.
Yeah.
Until you found what was always intended for you to find to complete the game.
Yeah.
That was just a kind of an interesting side note. And unfortunately, this generation is not experiencing that level of pressure.
Right.
To strengthen what needs to be strengthened in order for them to truly problem solve. And I see that with our kids a lot of times. It's like they haven't had to problem solve the way that we maybe needed to.
Yeah.
It's kind of sad, But it's like what made it hard is what made it fun. You know what I mean? Like,
oh yeah,
like that's kind of what made it fun. It kind of kept you going back. It wasn't like that instant gratification. You had to work for it. And so when that dopamine hit finally dropped, it was well earned.
yeah. We're in end stage Babylon, and I think that's what you're pointing at. You know, AI, Chat GPT, and all that stuff is now we've had it in the public zeitgeist for just long enough that some mid-length studies are starting to pop up, and one thing we're seeing is that Gen Alpha is being eviscerated by it because they interact with it completely differently than anyone else does. They're not interacting with it primarily as a mechanism to try to get things done, which sometimes it can be good at, especially if there's certain kinds of tasks. But they're interacting with it actually in a personified way, in an intimate way. They're interacting with it as a safe place, as a confidant, as an advisor, as a mentor, as a therapist, as a best friend, and it is destroying them. And that's again a product of, you know, we learned how to push past the awkward and form bonds. But they were robbed of that opportunity through kind of a confluence of being iPad kids, these screens, and then COVID, the world being shut down. And so they were robbed of that learning experience of how to push past the awkward and form relationships. And then so Babylon robbed them of that and then came along with a false solution that's there to drain the oil, that says, you know, well, thankfully you don't have to push past that pain point. They're helping the butterfly out of the cocoon, and they're going to kill it if we let them. And so, you know, really where people could throw their hands up in despair and say, well, just say, as for me and my house. Let's just start there. As for me and my house, we're gonna strike back. It's not gonna be perfect. Sometimes we will get sucked into it. Sometimes we will, but we're gonna fight back. We're not gonna go gentle into that good night. And so there's a lot of things about the world that because of how there's a lot of things about our experience of the world we live in that are not a product of prime reality. They're a product of the false reality overlay as
John St. Julian.
No, that one I think is more the pastor in Houston.
You have
Duval, Dan Duval. I think he's the one that really uses that terminology. John St. Julian has another terminology that I love, the knowledge of good and evil operating
That's
system.
what I'm thinking of, yeah.
But the same thing is being pointed at. Dan Duval calls it the false reality overlay. I don't know who came up with those terms, but they're great. But to me, those guys did. But bottom line is, a lot of the things that we experience are actually products of that matrix of sin and death that we're calling Babylon. And those experiences raise questions that make us very defensive because they threaten our understanding of how we fit into the world. And if we can start to learn to realize that, especially for those of us who are regenerated, who have been born again into the kingdom of heaven, our place in the Father's house is unassailable. No one can rob that from us again. Jesus bought it all the way back. He didn't rent it back. He didn't.
Right.
So our place in prime reality, if you will, the truth, the actual reality, our place in that world, the kingdom of heaven, is secured because of the blood, the work, the name of Jesus Christ, what he has done on our behalf, and the indwelling of the Holy Spirit that is the Father's presence with us that enables us to move through the world like the Son did. You know what I mean?
Yes, sir.
So that's all secure. And the part of us that's feeling insecure is the part of us that's still seeing the world through the overlay. And so these questions make us uncomfortable because in that game that we're stuck in, we've been assigned teams. And our survival inside that false reality overlay depends on our status in the team.
That's right.
And so if we can learn to recognize that the scared one is not the living one. The scared one is not the one that is seated with Christ in heavenly places. That one is secure. The one that's scared is an avatar. The one that's scared is actually a character playing us inside the game. And so if we can learn to take a step back, go back, be seated back with Christ. I know this is, we haven't actually we've hinted at stuff like this.
Yeah, this is good though.
If we can take a step back and be seated with Christ in heavenly places and go back to watching the game from outside the system. The whole system can crash and burn, and we'll be okay. Our avatar won't survive it, but we'll be okay. If we can go back to observing it from a position of wholeness and being held in Christ Jesus, we can truly become like Paul. All these things I once counted as so valuable are now a pile of excrement to me. They're neither here nor there. My only interest in them is insofar as they help me serve you and serve him. That's it. Paul had reached the point where he understood my only attachment to the avatar is and I'm not using that word. I don't quite understand how that word gets used in the New Age and New Thought movement, so please forgive me if that word avatar has baggage for you, because I don't totally understand that.
I mean, we're going to redeem it too, though.
Right.
Yeah.
I'm thinking of it more like it would be in a game, in a video game. And so that avatar of me only has value insofar as it helps me accomplish the will of the Father within that game for as long as he wants me in there. And so if we can take that step back, then those questions that threaten our standing in the team become much less threatening, because they're not threatening us, they're threatening the avatar.
Yeah.
We get super worked up when we're playing the video game. Oh, man. If you don't have good emotional regulation, you might throw the controller.
Yeah.
And then go make a peanut butter jelly. Why? Because you were the observer the whole time. You weren't the player. You were outside the game the whole time.
The entire time.
It didn't actually matter that much.
But you're so immersed in the experience
that it feels like it does. Mm-hmm. But at the end of the day, you're just going to go get a peanut butter jelly, because that's you know what I mean? You're in a different reality. And so it's not existential for you anymore.
Yeah.
And so I'm saying all that to say, let's talk about what is threatened. What is the fear? What is it that's being threatened? Because it's it's that fear of being separated from the herd, being cut off from the team, losing our status in the team that we're in and all of that. It's that fear that so often prevents us from knocking on the door that would bring us out of the kingdom of darkness and into his marvelous light, from acknowledging the elephant in the room that would break the simulation for us. You know what I mean?
Exactly.
And that's by design. The designers of these games that you're talking about now, they're brilliant. All they are is the next generation. The designers of the games we're playing now are the ones who grew up on the games you were describing a few minutes ago. They grew up on Pong or whatever y'all were playing. The one I know about
Super
is
Mario
Pokemon.
Brothers,
Not
Donkey
Pokemon.
Kong.
What's the one where the little fish mouths or the little mouths gobble up the dots?
Oh, Pac-Man.
Pac-Man. There you go.
Not the fish mouth.
I don't know what they are, but
Yeah,
those,
I got
you
you.
know, I can kind of play that. A
Yeah,
little.
yeah, yeah.
You know, the ones that grew up playing those things and Call of Duty and whatever, they're now creating these games. I forget what they call them now, but they're so addictive. First of all, a lot of them live right here.
Yes.
But second of all, it's exactly what you said. There's always a way to stay in it. Maybe you may have to buy a 99-cent coin package, but you can stay in it.
Yeah.
And man, that's a high like no other high. But the problem is when we're done with 4 hours of that or whatever, we're destroyed. I mean, we are angry, we are miserable, we are depressed, we're self-loathing, even our babies are when they're done with it, if we let them do it. And it's because where we used to, the games that you're talking about that you grew up on, used to milk the cow for a cup of milk, and the designers of the game, they liked having cereal, and so they would milk everybody for their cup of milk.
Yeah.
But now it's being pressed out of us on an industrial scale, pulled out of us, and we're being, drained of the last vestiges of our energy and it's just because the system is getting better and better at staying ahead of our ability to reproduce what he put in us. They're just as quick as that oil can come up in us, they've got it. And it's just more and more refined because we're coming to, the cup is almost full. That's what Revelation says. Babylon finally mixed the last cup. And that's what's happening.
Yeah.
And so it's reached this stage where the human race is being so systematically depleted of everything that pertains to life and joy and peace, and that when we put down a game, instead of being exhilarated and we beat the levels and all that, no, we have no hormones left. We have no, the neurotransmitters are dead. We have actually lost like a lot of brain cells. Like we're being turned into piles of goo at this point because we're so close to the end, which is why we have to name the elephants in the room. We have to talk about the questions that threaten our standing in these teams they've got us in this simulation. We have to be secure enough to acknowledge the things that the world throws in our face to try to shake our faith, and realize that we either believe that we're standing on the rock or we don't. And if the answer to a question turns out to wreck my understanding of truth, it's not because truth failed. We have to understand that that's why we have to receive a love of the truth.
Yeah.
If it thoroughly destroys your understanding of truth, that's not because truth failed. And the only thing you could gain out of that is breaking free of deception, which is Babylon.
Exactly. Like,
so the worst thing but why don't I want to? Because there's a whole tribe, a whole team that is going to say, I fell to the dark side. I'm going to lose all of, but you have to realize you're not losing them, you're losing their avatars.
yeah.
They're stuck in the game. And somebody's got to get free. And so I thought earlier when we were talking about how as the oil increases within us, the life force that God placed within us, the system senses it. I thought of a disgusting analogy that I want to throw out right before we go to the word. Have you ever seen an elephant in Musth, a video of an elephant in Musth, where they have the stuff oozing from their ears and stuff? Male elephants go into this, it's like heat, but for the bull elephants. I think they call them bulls. They're ready to fight battles, to have war and all of that and make babies. That's what it comes down to. It's time to choose mates and reproduce. And what happens is, like, hormones can increase, like testosterone, I think, can increase 10,000%, something like that.
Wow.
I mean, that may, I'm not a biologist or whatever, but it is something. I think that's an accurate number. That testosterone can increase 10,000%. All of this stuff starts raging inside of the bull elephants, and they start leaking it out of their pores and everything. And so if you ever see an elephant with a dark streak that looks like tears running down their face,
be careful.
Oh, I mean, pray and take the wisest action you know how to take
right.
very quickly.
Right.
You know what I mean? And so it's really pretty disgusting. They start dribbling urine everywhere they go. They're marking their territory as they walk. And I mean, it's intense. Read about it sometime. I can't say a lot of it on YouTube. But they also become highly aggressive and dominant, as you would with a 10,000% testosterone increase, and their drive goes through the window, and they start to often eat less and focus more on the mission, if you know what I mean.
Wow.
And a very distinctive, I've never smelled it, but I've heard many reports, a very distinctive and off-putting odor starts to emit from them. As it would, because if you've ever had, like I do, boys and girls in your house, boys smell different than girls smell.
They do.
They just do. There's something about a little boy that can wake up in the morning just smelling like a whole locker room.
Right.
By himself.
Bag of
as
onions.
Those hormones start up. You know what I mean? Whereas girls smell, they go to bed smelling like Garnier Fructis. They wake up smelling like Garnier Fructis. And so then you got this little angry stink ball coming at you in the morning with attitude and needing cereal and all that. And this is that, but in elephants.
Yeah.
And and so there's an analogy there that's disgusting but real, that whatever within us begins to increase is detectable around us. And it changes the posture of the world toward us. And it changes our posture toward the world. And whatever appetites come along with that thing will increase, and whatever appetites don't harmonize with it will decrease. And the whole frequency of our life shifts, and our reality shifts with it. As you walk forward in the Antikemi lifestyle of being an active duty participant in the kingdom of heaven, that oil of joy that's replacing the old ashes of your life is going to begin to boil up inside of you and leak out from you and produce an aroma of death to them that are perishing and an aroma of life to them that are being saved. and the whole world is going to shift its posture toward you, and you are going to shift your posture toward the world, and war will ensue, and territory will be marked and battled over, and fruit will be born, reproduction will happen, but some bull elephants don't survive the season because clashes will ensue.
Yeah.
And so we have to go back to God and say, if I'm not going to give in and because an elephant can submit if it doesn't want to die. And I don't know. We'd have to ask somebody who really understands it. But if it works like the males of every other species, I would imagine that an elephant like that could start to come out of that, and that could start to drain out of them. And if they choose to be less dominant, and you know what I mean? Mm-hmm. If they're like most other mammals, you could go that route, and the kids call it, become more beta or whatever. You know what I mean? Uh-huh. But what would most likely be go fact check me, but if they work like most mammals do, then probably what the outcome of that would be is that those hormones would begin to decrease and all of that, and you would start to shift back to the other reality, but now more enslaved. And so the point is, as the oil that God has entrusted to us grows within us, those are the kind of choices we face. And as it shifts our reality and our experience of reality, we're going to have to decide whether to acknowledge the opponent pawing the ground across the prairie at us, or turn tail and run from it. And until we learn to stand our ground and move forward through this reality from within a different reality and continue to advance even when the opposition comes toward us, we're just going to keep winding up getting depleted, being fruitless, losing territory. Mm-hmm. And so that's why we're asking the question tonight, what is this drive to belong, to be on a team? Who put it there? Which for us, the answer is God, unless it's a product of the fall, and I'm about to prove it's not.
Right.
And why? Why? Because we've talked now about how the enemy uses that. But why is it there? And what are we supposed to do with it, right? Penny, for your thoughts?
Man, so much. I love that analogy, number one.
It's gross, but
it does drive you to like really think on how I am going to manage whatever God has put inside me. And it's there for a reason.
Yeah.
And like how you mentioned, like, I can almost imagine an elephant almost experiencing that in captivity.
Right.
How dangerous it is for everything around him, even the handlers.
Yes.
Especially the handlers.
Come on, bro. That'll preach.
You know what I'm saying? Woo! So it's like, okay, how are we supposed to experience what's been put inside of us that is actually naturally happening? And what's the result of that? But are we going to tuck tail and die off? Or are we going to manifest everything that is happening until we are in a place of freedom? Like, does that make sense?
Oh, bro. So I had to ask AI based off of what you said. So this is the answer I got. So take it with a pound of salt, because it's the AI overview. Yes, male elephants in captivity absolutely experience musth, a natural hormonal state with massive testosterone spikes. But captivity can alter its frequency, duration, and intensity,
Yeah.
often leading to heightened aggression, making management challenging for zoos due to the need for strong enclosures and special care needed for these powerful, unpredictable periods. My God, man.
And I can imagine after a certain amount of time, and analogies break down at a certain point,
Sure.
but I can imagine at a certain amount of time, you get convinced that you're the crazy one. You're experiencing all of this, which is natural, but you're in captivity and you're causing all this damage and you're tripping out. And after a while, the handlers and everybody there that's around you can easily convince you that you're the one that's the problem. And you start to manage this differently.
Yeah.
And you no longer, it's like the, what is it, like the lions in captivity? Like, if they grew up in captivity and they were never taught to hunt, and then let's just say, someone comes in and they're like, we're going to free the animals, and they drop them into the wild, they'll die.
Yeah.
They're used to you dropping off the antelope steak at 2 o'clock and 7 o'clock on the dot. You're dropping it off, and I'm ready to eat. I haven't had to work for anything.
Yeah. That's my reality.
It's that's my reality, right? And so when it's that false reality overlay is lifted, you now have the choice to like actually learn how to interact and see the world for what it is and adapt or lay down and die. And I think that this is why these conversations are so vital and important, because we need to have more training on how to adapt.
Yes.
How to pivot, how to problem solve, how to actively resist against the things that have been told to you, and how to like hold these questions in tension, even if you don't have great answers so far. Even if what you have been exposed to is not allowing you to come to the conclusion that you need to land at totally, but that's okay, because at least you're on the journey. At least you are exploring. At least you're asking questions. That is so much better than just, okay, I'm swallowing every pill that's given to me.
Yeah.
You know?
I think it was Philip K. Dick, science fiction author. I couldn't believe when you started where you did just a second ago, because I came in here thinking about this statement, and then you just went there. He said, it is sometimes an appropriate response to reality to go insane.
Whew. Yeah. Yeah.
And this, this is why, while I don't really believe that the phrase "my truth" is super helpful, I think it can do more damage than it can good. I do understand the concept that's being pointed at and why it can be important to acknowledge it, because there's nothing less productive than two people headlocked in just an all-out duel to the death over, you did this, no I didn't, you did this, no I didn't, you did this. And that's why I think people have started to say, well, my truth is, but I don't like that because truth will make you free.
Yeah.
So because I don't believe that truth lives within the false reality overlay.
It can't.
It's bigger than the game.
Yeah.
It's bigger than the system. So what can be helpful is to say my reality is, my experience is.
Yeah.
But mostly it can be helpful if your heart posture is that you recognize that you're saying, this is how I perceived this, with enough humility to understand that someone else who might have perceived it differently could have a valid experience too, even though it contradicts yours. Mm-hmm. And again, this is one of those things we don't like to acknowledge those things because it's existential. That threaten. If what I know happened, if it's valid to say that it didn't happen, who am I? Where am I? What is this?
But this is also why we're so brainwashed in our own factions,
right?
That when we're presented with something that is capital T truth,
right?
If it does not echo
yep.
the accent
yep.
that we're used to communicating it, because we're drawn to how, this is going back to the Babel thing, we're drawn to what we're able to communicate. Like,
right.
The whole birds of a feather flock together. So it's like, okay, I see a level of similarity that is comfortable. That's comforting. Like, you look like me, we sound the same. We're able to vibe at a certain level. We're not necessarily asking the good questions that we should ask because we've passed the vibe check.
Right.
We'll resonate at this frequency. We'll just stay right here, right?
Right.
And anything foreign to that, we've already come into a level of agreement that we're inside this particular faction.
Yep.
Whether it's formalized or not, that doesn't even matter.
Yep.
But when we hear something that speaks differently, we have like this aversion to it, and we're ready to team up and attack this outside threat.
Yep.
You know what came to mind was I was even like kind of like pondering and contemplating that is, what is that in Samuel? I think it's in Samuel. Maybe it's in Chronicles. Where, or actually maybe that might be Judges, where the tribe, by the way that they said, Shibboleth?
Yeah, Shibboleth and Sibboleth. We know if you remember or not.
Something so simple.
100%.
They were killing their brothers.
Yeah.
Based upon identifying how they pronounced a word.
A consonant. You're on the bad team. Shibboleth.
That's crazy to me.
But we do it all the time, especially online. My God, we do it all the time. Yeah. But you're so right that one of the dangers here is that capital T truth could so threaten our understanding of our reality and thereby the team we are on and the way we approach that reality, that we will reject it out of hand because it represents an existential threat. If we are operating from within the avatar, if we have not distinguished the difference between the icon that moves through this reality and the us.
Yeah.
That
I would have loved to get a peek into Jesus's mind. The moment where
full stop.
right. Full stop. That's a complete sentence, right? The moment the disciples were like, "Hey, we saw them casting out and demons and doing mighty works, like in your name, and they're not part of us. They're not on our team. Do we need to stop them?"
Yeah.
And Jesus is like, "Man, y'all have lost the plot.
It has always
You've lost the plot."
like it has always almost made me feel bad for him in a way. Like,
Yeah.
that must have been so upsetting. Because it was like, it's like if you stick the dipstick in your car, and not only is there no oil, the only drop of oil you can see at the bottom is black as tar. You're like,
how long
what
have you
are
been
we
living like
doing?
this?
It says he abraded them. Isn't that where he did that?
A couple times, but yeah, it's just we were just like,
You
no,
moron.
right?
Like, because they were living in a reality that was so far.
Yeah.
And yet they were so threatened by something that had no bearing on prime reality, on truth. It was not doing, and in fact, if anything, might be a net positive.
Yeah. I mean, you go down the list of, I mean, my mind's just spinning with this concept that we've had to gradually break out of. I mean, my goodness gracious. It took the Spirit and a vision, the voice of God, to consistently get Peter to make that trip down to see Cornelius.
Yeah.
And even then, after he had all the confirmation that you would think that you would need, like, this is where I want you to go, this is what I need you to say, I don't care.
God had to hypnotize him. He fell into a trance.
Literally had to snap him out of his conscious state.
He had to get this man in theta waves.
That's crazy. And even then, he's like, he felt the need to disclaimer.
Yeah.
How often do we disclaimer the gospel?
Right.
And finally, the Holy Spirit was like, I'm about to bypass you.
And why is it so important to us to be the ultimate guardians of the God? Like, why do we need everyone else to be going to hell so bad? Speaking of teams, why are, for instance, let's just pick on us. Why are we so obsessed with the gifts of the Spirit that we cannot bring ourselves to acknowledge the fruit of the Spirit in brothers and sisters who may not have all the gifts we think they need?
Yeah.
Because it would break our illusion if they do. Because Jesus said a bad tree can only bring forth bad fruit.
Right.
And if you see good fruit, the tree is good.
Yeah.
So it utterly breaks. I'm telling you, you Pentecostals, sit with this for a minute. And I'm just picking on you because you're us. Mm-hmm. I'm picking on our team.
Yeah.
Sit with this. If you acknowledge the self-evident truth, Jesus said, you know by the fruit. And if you see a person who has never spoken in tongues a day in their life bringing forth the fruit of the Spirit, you have a choice. You can either pretend you don't see it, lash out against it. You can acknowledge it, and it breaks the version of the game you're playing, and now you don't have a team, and they're all gonna badmouth you in the chat, and you know all that. Or you can agree with Jesus, come hell or high water. But those are kind of your options. And if as our friend Dr. Willis says, if you didn't like that, you're going to hate this.
You're going to hate this.
What about people you see yabba dabba doing and shouting in the altar?
Zero fruit.
Zero fruit. I'm not going to
reconcile that.
Yeah, I'm not going to answer it.
Yeah.
It's not my place.
Right.
But if you can't acknowledge that tension and at least acknowledge that the question exists, and please, I don't mean any disrespect by yabba dabba doing. I would never say that of someone who's speaking in the true tongues of the Spirit. But I'm saying if there's no fruit of the Spirit, is it really that?
Mm-hmm.
If you can't acknowledge that these questions exist, if there are questions you are unwilling to acknowledge because of the existential threat they pose to your standing in the team and your position in the game, then you can know for a fact that you do not love truth above all things. And you can know for a fact that you have no guarantee to ever be truly free. Because if you can't acknowledge the question, you'll never know the truth. And if you don't know the truth, how's it going to make you free? So learning to sit in that tension until the one who is so perturbed by it finally shuts up. Starve that avatar into submission until it finally goes back in the grave under the blood with Jesus where it belongs. And be okay with whoever you turn out to be the next time he sends you into the game. Because he will. Because that's what we're here to do.
Yeah.
If I could ever crack the Bible, we'd get there. But until you can do that, and when Philip Dick said sometimes the appropriate response to reality is to go insane, Paul said it too. If we are insane, it's for your sakes.
Yeah. Sure did.
So that's actually what it means to become all things to all people. Let me just flip that around for us. I think this could help somebody. Maybe becoming all things to all men so that by any means all might be saved. Maybe it's not just fishing with the right bait.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe it's also putting off the right scent when it's time to. In other words, maybe it's also being willing to be a lunatic in their eyes, to be a heretic in their book, to be a villain in their story, if that's what it takes to represent the true living God in this world.
Mm-hmm.
That's the Antikemi decision, is am I willing to live and die for truth and love and be remembered as a villain, a lunatic, a heretic, to let my name rot in this realm and my reputation with it, if that's what it takes to be in this world but not of it.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
It's hard.
That's a hefty price.
Because it goes against the design that we keep talking about. Do you know where I'm going to go to appeal to the word for where does this tribalistic impulse come from?
Kind of curious. I think you go a couple places, but actually, I'm not.
Where would you go if you had to pick, right? Because there's more than one place you could go. You don't have to answer that if you don't have. I'm just curious.
Let me think on it. I don't know where I would go right off top.
So let's redefine the question, or restate it just to make sure it's clear in everybody's mind. What we're asking is, now that we know Babylon leverages this impulse to want to have identity and membership in something bigger than us, a team, a group, a tribe, whatever, right? Now that we know that, and that is leveraged against us using fear of losing it, what is it and why is it there? Is it there because of the fall? Did God put it there? And if he did, why? You know what I mean?
Well, okay, with that being said, I mean, my mind kind of goes to, was it Isaiah 45? Being the light to the nations.
Yeah.
Is that where you were kind of going with it?
I mean, I love that. It's right in line with it. It's not where I'm going to go in a second.
Yeah, that's where my mind kind of goes, is that, like, why would the Most High pull little Israel?
Right.
Choose it. It's the apple of his eye. It's the bride.
Right.
And we have so, vandalized, for lack of a better word, that concept of grace being introduced.
Yes.
Grace is not a New Testament
absolutely
concept. Sorry to those of you who thought
absolutely
that.
not.
Grace was littered all throughout the corpus of Scripture. But the fact that Israel was chosen as beloved, but the purpose was to point the world, the nations, higher back to fellowship with the Father, defeating the final boss of this world, this game that we're playing in. And along the same lines, as far as like the whole Avatar motif, like that's that flesh, that we're wrapped inside. It's all, that's where my mind.
Yeah, God's concern was always the nations.
Yeah,
that's one of the funny ironies about the chosen people concept. You were chosen because he was after them.
And that's what makes these factions, these identity-centered religious factions, so dangerous, because they're leveraging the hole inside your soul that's crying out for a belonging and for to feel valued.
Yeah.
And so they're leveraging that. They're saying, well, let me pull at that or tug at that heartstring aspect, and let me tell you who you are and why you're special. Discounting anything that's resembling truth.
Right.
Actual. And they leverage that and they play on that.
Yep.
Until truth doesn't really matter anymore, because I belong now to something that is greater than myself.
Yep.
And I become even greater than the sum of its parts.
Yeah, God created Israel as a people so that he could show the world what happens when you live in covenantal obedience to him or break that covenant, and how he fixes it when you do, how he disciplines you, how he fixes it. Because he wanted to tell the world the story of how they were supposed to be living, the nations, the non-chosen ones. They were supposed to be living in covenant with him, and what happened when they broke it, and how he's going to fix it, and what can be if they'll come back into that covenant. Because he was always telling the story of what happened to Adam's race, so that he could invite Adam's race back to the table. But he created Adam's race so he could show the universe the story of what happened when Satan and all of them in the various rebellions, broke covenant with him, and what can happen when the universe comes back into covenant with him,
right,
and how he's going to accomplish it. It's every iteration of it, no matter how big the story gets until you get back up to God, the story's always about the next one. Like every one of us is chosen because God is trying to reach because he's redeeming the whole thing back to himself. So in the end, it's a story about God. And so you're talking about identity there when you say, for you, it lives in Isaiah 45, you said?
I believe it's 45.
But also he said it to Abraham. In you, all the nations of the world will be blessed. And, so this you're saying, if I understand you right, to be on this team is actually about all the teams. It's actually about him trying to bring redemption to the race, right?
Yes, sir.
To the human race. Okay. So for me, if we want to answer this question, the easiest thing to do is to go right back to the creation of, as with most existential questions in Scripture, you can usually go to the first 3 chapters of Genesis or the first 6, something like that, or the last 3 chapters of Revelation, and you can find it. And for me, here it is. Genesis 3:9. Then Yehovah called to Adam and said to him, "Where are you?" And he said, "I heard the sound of you in the garden, and I was afraid because I was naked, so I hid myself." And he said, "Who told you that you were naked? Have you eaten from the tree which I commanded you not to eat?" The man said, "The woman whom you gave me to be with me, she gave me from the tree and I ate." So, what was it about coming to self-awareness, the knowledge of good and evil? What was it about becoming self-aware at that level that tipped them off about their nakedness and God knew? Let me suggest this. I doubt you've ever been uncomfortable naked in a room by yourself with no door, no windows, no lock on the door. If you were uncomfortable in that environment, there was probably a mirror involved, which both suggests an other and also actually literally brings an other into the conversation, because a mirror allows the avatar to converse with the observer, the player and the character.
Yeah.
Right?
There's an awareness.
There's an awareness. Without that mirror, without the other, or at least the suggestion of the other, being naked in the room is just kind of comfortable.
Mm-hmm.
The discomfort of their nakedness was because of the presence of the other. I don't think if Adam ate the fruit alone or Eve ate the fruit alone, their experience of it would have likely been the same. The fact that the immediate fallout was discomfort with nakedness, to me suggests that vulnerability had suddenly become a liability.
Yep.
In that moment, 2 things became extremely important: membership and presentation. straight for the fig leaves. It goes back, in my opinion, a little ways. We could chase it all the way back to Genesis 2 and Genesis 1 and deal with...
Hold on. I don't want to throw you off.
No, you're not.
I just had this thought. I wonder in that moment, they're conversing with the entity, this creature.
Right.
They bite the fruit. Let me back up. There was a reason that Adam came to the conclusion that there was no one suitable for him.
That's where we're going.
To have a helpmeet.
That's where we're going.
Right. So the Most High is letting all the animals pass before him, and he's naming them in complete alignment with the mind of God. It's like God want to be like, what are you going to call that? Call that a horse. You're right, it is a horse. What is that? Zebra. You're right, it's a zebra. Perfect synchrony, right? They were naked. The animals were naked.
Yep.
And then all of a sudden they come in contact with this creature that is more subtle than anything that they've encountered before. We know the story. They fall, prey to their own curiosity and rebellion, eat of the fruit, and their awareness comes online that the truth, like you said, your vulnerability is now being weaponized against you.
Yep.
And they quickly, we have to cover up and distinguish ourselves from everything else.
Yes.
Even though they were already distinguished.
Yes.
Their intelligence and intellect was already much higher than anything that they have come in contact with, which was evident by there was no suitable helpmate for Adam. So the fig leaves, that was the first instance of the false reality being used to cover up the truth of the matter.
Yep.
I don't know. I'm sorry. That's just...
Oh, no. You're bang on. We have touched on this and avoided it so many times. And I know we've been at this a little while, but I think we should go ahead and touch on this. So I'm just going to do it. Because you went right where, to me, where you just went is where the answer lives. Okay, all right. So here's the deal. I've said it before, I'll say it again. You don't have to buy into this. Every time I've talked to our church about this,
let's go.
I've said, you don't have to buy it. It's one way of understanding the word. But speaking of questions we don't like to acknowledge because they threaten our avatar and the standing in the team, read Genesis 1 and 2 very carefully.
Very carefully.
I mean, extraordinarily carefully. Do this. Make a list of what God created in the sequence he created it.
Come on now.
And compare Genesis 1 and Genesis 2. And tell me if you can harmonize those two accounts. Because here's a spoiler. You should try it. You definitely, everyone, don't. Man, the stupidest thing you could ever do is hear somebody say something as unhinged as I'm about to say.
And just take their word for
it. And just take their word for it. You would be a lunatic to do that. But go look. If you write down a list of everything God created in Genesis 1 in the sequential order he created it, and compare it to everything he created in the account in Genesis 2 in the sequential order he created it, you cannot harmonize those two accounts. Either one or both are false accounts, or they are describing two different situations. And I'll just tell you, because this is not a heaven or hell thing. That's the thing. Everybody relax. Put down your, we can disagree vociferously on this and all live in the heavenly kingdom together joyfully for eternity and laugh about how we were all wrong.
Right.
Because we're going to understand it better by and by.
But since we're here. Yeah.
Genesis 1 and Genesis 2 are not the same.
Yeah.
They're not. You not if you read them carefully. They are not the same. It's not the same account. It doesn't happen in the same order. It doesn't have the same distinctives.
Right.
God is not even referred to the same way. Very noticeably.
Yeah.
In Genesis 1, he's Elohim, divinity, and possibly they. And in Genesis 2, he is the one true, almighty, living God, the Most High, Yehovah himself.
This is where our English translations really rob us from the richness of a text.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
But the spoiler is, if you see the word G-O-D, that's probably Elohim. If you see the capitalized L-O-R-D in most of your translations, that's Yud-He-Vav-He, Yahweh, Yehovah, however you want to say it, right?
Right.
Genesis 1, that name does not pop up once. Genesis 2, that's the way he's referred to.
Yeah.
So, in my opinion, the most logical conclusion is Genesis 1 and Genesis 2 are describing two different events. It also solves an unbelievable number of problems.
It does.
If you assume that.
It does.
So let's just, for the sake of argument, this is where God's people need to mature to the point that we can run thought experiments without being so threatened by our creedal identities that we can't even, because a lot of people's reaction is just going to be to reject the idea out of hand because they're scared of the opinion of a Sunday school teacher who's been with the Lord for 40 years. They're scared that that person's going to be disappointed. You know what I mean? It's that whole thing we've been discussing for 2 hours. So in Genesis 1, one of the things that happens is that Elohim says, let us make man in our image, right? Okay, verse 26. But verse 27, Elohim created man in his own image. In the image of Elohim he created him. Male and female, he created them. God blessed them, said, be fruitful, multiply, fill the earth, subdue it, rule over the fish of the sea, over the birds of the sky, over every living thing that moves on the earth, on and on. I've given you every plant, all this stuff, right? The trees that yield fruit. Then Genesis 2 has the completion of the heavens and the earth and all their hosts. On the seventh day, the Sabbath, God rests from all his works which he's done, blesses the Sabbath day, sanctifies it because he rested from it. And then we are told, verse 4, we just read the account of the heavens and the earth and how they were created, right? Mm-hmm. Now we're told, this is the account of the heavens and the earth when they were created in the day that, but now you could say a new character, or you could say at least we are introduced to the main character in a entirely fresh way, right here, right now, in the day that Yehovah Elohim made earth and heaven. Now, if you go use your pen and your highlighter and you follow everything I said and you make the list I said to make and all of that, what I just said is going to leave you with so many questions and so few answers. Please be okay with that.
Yeah.
Let's mature to that point. We can have this discussion for years. Are there good books to read? Absolutely. Are there good lectures? Absolutely. None of that matters for the sake of this conversation. Right now, we're just practicing being comfortable with the question. What is happening right here? Okay. Now, this says specifically that no shrub of the field was yet in the earth. No plant had yet sprouted. And at that point, God forms Adam, this man, from the dust of the ground and breathed into his nostrils the breath of life, and man became a living being. Please follow me here, y'all. This is after we are told that he created man, Adam, male and female, because that word man, that's what it is, Adam, the dirt man. Adama. So he created mankind in his image, male and female, blessed them, told them to multiply, told them he'd given them all these amazing shrubs and trees to eat and everything. And then we go to the next chapter and it says, before any of that stuff existed, before there was rain, before there were shrubs, before there was any of this, God created this man and breathed into his nostrils, and he became a living soul, right? After humanity has already been told to reproduce vociferously. Mm-hmm. And then God plants a garden toward the east, and there he places this very special man that he has formed out of the dust of the ground, and he puts him in the garden, and then he grows trees. Then, verse 9, he grows trees. And the two very famous trees, all these rivers, all this gold, all this precious stones, all this stuff that's here. Verse 15 says, Then Yehovah God took the man and put him into the Garden of Eden to cultivate it and keep it. Yehovah God commanded the man, saying, from any tree of the garden you may eat freely. You know the deal. Verse 18, then Yehovah God, then, say then. Then Yehovah God said, it is not good for the man to be alone. I will make him a helper suitable for him. I'm sorry. Where did all those other women go? Male and female created he them. He told them to be fruitful and multiply. Right. Why does this guy in the garden not have a suitable helper? Let's keep going for a second. Out of the ground, the Lord God formed every beast of the field, every bird of the sky, all this stuff. He brings them to the man to see what he would call them. Whatever the man called a living creature, that was its name. The man gave names to all of the cattle, the birds, the sky, the beasts of the field. But for Adam, there was not found a helper suitable for him, or a counterpart compatible with him, is what we're being told. So Yehovah God caused a deep sleep to fall upon the man, and he slept. You know the story. Brings forth the woman, bone of my bones, flesh of my flesh, the mother of all living. Okay, y'all, just track long enough. What do we know about the man in the garden that could possibly be different from the man that was created, the humanity that was created and told, go for it, have a great time, eat up, make babies, right? Mm-hmm. Well, we're told a couple of things. One is he's hand-formed. But the biggest thing we're told is God breathed the breath of life in his nostrils, and he became a living soul. So let me suggest this to you. Could it be that chapter 1 is the creation of humanity and chapter 2 is the story of being born again? Could it be that 1 is generation and 2 is regeneration?
From the very beginning.
From the very beginning. That God, I feel the Holy Ghost, man, that God showed us a picture and said, if I breathe in your nostrils, you will come alive in a way that no other being that has the breath of life in it is alive. And yes, they do have the same breath in them, but not breathed through their nostrils by the living God himself. If I breathe in your nostrils, you will wake up to an existence that stands outside this matrix called heaven and earth. that exists above these dimensions of time and space. And if I do that, you would be unequally yoked to try to reproduce or steward this creation with any sexually suitable counterpart who has not had that same experience.
It's interesting because he pulled out of what he already had formed and breathed the breath of life into the woman. He could have just replicated the same thing. It's like, well, it worked, so let's go ahead and just grab some more clay.
Yeah.
And I'll breathe into that.
Yeah.
God said, no, I'm a pull out of what I've already done.
Yes.
Like, that's significant to me.
And he took an aspect of the nature he had already placed within that man and gave it back to him in the form of help. So that presence, the presence of the living God, the presence of life, joy, and peace would live in the midst of them when they're in unity.
We can go down this other rabbit hole some other time, but it's such a perfect picture even of why marriage is so sacred and that covenant is so special, because when you mistreat what was built and pulled out of you, it's what we talked about earlier. Like, you're bending in, like you're destroying your own self. Like, it truly is one flesh.
Yeah.
And when you look at that helpmeet that's suitable as being attached to the other team as an enemy instead of an ally, you have again lost the plot, and you have fallen prey to the worst devices that this avatar could be involved in.
It's the truth of why the biblical view of marriage matters.
Yeah.
Leave all that purity culture, judgmental stuff out of it. All of that stuff pertains, sure, to Christian living, but leave all that out of this discussion. The truth about why the biblical view of marriage matters is because of this right here, that it's a specific institution given to us by God to accomplish a specific purpose. And that's not just procreation. It's for these aspects of God that have been breathed into humanity to come together as perfectly suited counterparts in a regenerate context. And so, bro, you said chase that rabbit another day, and that's great. But let me just say this. If what we just said is true, then we ought to be able to acknowledge that regenerate and unregenerate people coming into a marital union actually falls just as much outside the boundaries of that biblical covenant as other things do.
Yeah.
I don't say that to judge anybody. There's always redemption. There's always, but again, if we've made an error, let's not pretend it doesn't exist. Let's go to God with it. That's what grace is for.
Yeah.
But you can only hurt yourself by not acknowledging truth. The law came through Moses, but grace and truth by Jesus Christ. Right. If we only got truth, we couldn't handle it. So we had to get truth packaged in grace, right? So let's not be afraid of it. So here we are. We've just discovered, in my view, why this need to team up and have identity and be members of something is so important. It's because God decreed it. So it is not good for the man to be alone. I will make him a helper suitable for him. And right there is instilled within us this eternal drive that is supposed to be drawing us toward the souls with whom we share common and covenantal bonds of purpose. That these people, whether it's our wife or our husband or our children or the brothers and sisters in the family of God, that we are called to walk together with and steward this creation with and fish for men with and all of these things that we're called to do. But there are specific souls made alive by the breath of God breathed into their nostrils with whom our soul is constantly seeking to find them and be united with them and come together in the purpose for which that we were put on this earth to do the thing we were sent here to do. And so God instilled this drive in us to be looking for that. And not only that, he instilled it within us that in that context, we would feel safe with the naked truth about ourselves. That we could be 100 with each other all the time.
Right.
And not feel the need to front, to have fig leaves, to put space between us. And it was in that perfected context, two naked people perfectly suited for each other in their assignment, protected by covenant, all of those things. Nakedness was never an issue because it never came up because there wasn't separation for it to be viewed across. All are one in him.
That's right.
And so the nakedness of each other or ourselves didn't bother us any more than the nakedness of the mole rat when we named that. Like it
right.
it is
that
what
was my point. Yeah,
is.
exactly.
You said it.
Mm-hmm.
But suddenly when breaking of covenant created separation and distance, all of a sudden, we now experienced isolation and othering for the very first time, in which case we immediately felt unsafe and needed to put up some kind of veneer that we call ego, fig leaves. We needed to be able to control our presentation to each other.
And isolate.
And through the common graces of marriage and family and even national identity and all of that, God gives us back pieces of what we're missing there, and to varying degrees we can be ourselves with those people and all that. But we live in an imperfect world, which means there are almost always, if not always, parts of us that don't feel safe. Even in the mirror, never mind in the eyes of the other. And so we're constantly seeking the jersey, the fig leaves, and the group identity to try to patch up this soul wound of isolation and vulnerability that we feel, and this longing for common purpose and all of that we're constantly feeling. And so we're always in every situation going to try to identify the ones that are the most suitable to us and wear the same jerseys and be on the same team. Mm-hmm. That's leaving all of evolutionary psychology, all of that discussion out of it. Just right here in the Bible, we're given completely valid reasons why we would feel that drive so viscerally, and why fear would be one of the main sins that would lie at the door. Where I heard the sound of you walking in the garden and I was afraid and hid because I was naked. Mm-hmm. And so fear it was desire that caused us to fall, but it was fear that drove the separation from the presence of God and each other. And so that's why Babylon is so good at leveraging our fear of being isolated, of being othered, of being vulnerable, of not belonging, because the king of Babylon was watching as it happened.
Yeah.
He talked us into it. Where's your head at?
Just being reminded what was taken from us, man. Actually, you know what? Let me amend that. What we gave away.
What we gave away. And what we're fighting to receive back. We're not fighting to take it back. Jesus took it back. We're fighting to receive it. To get the avatar out of the way so that the overcomer can overcome.
That's right.
And so the high priestly prayer in John 17 gains new meaning. Verse 15, I do not ask you. No, let me back up. Verse 13, but now I come to you, and these things I speak in the world, so that they may have my joy made full in themselves. I have given them your word, and the world, the cosmos, the heavens and the earth, has hated them because they are not of that operating system. They are not of that game. They are not of that false reality overlay. They are not of that simulation. They are not of the world, even as I am not of the world. Scott McKnight's one says, they are not of the cosmos, just as I am not of the cosmos.
Yeah.
I do not ask you to take them out of the world. I'm not asking you to stop running the simulation. I understand that there is purpose in them being here in it.
Yeah.
Because just as I came to seek and to save that which was lost, they too are being sent out as sheep among wolves, as fishers, to seek and to save that which is lost. I do not ask you to take them out of the world, but to keep them from the serpent, from the evil one. They are not of the world, even as I am not of the world. Sanctify them in the truth. Your word, set them apart in the truth. Your word is truth. As you sent me into the world, I also have sent them into the world. For their sakes I sanctify myself, set myself apart, that they themselves also may be sanctified, set apart in truth. I do not ask on behalf of these alone, but for those also who believe in me through their word. He prayed for Jonathan. He prayed for Schulz. He prayed for you. He prayed for your backslidden children, that they may all be one, even as you, Father, are in me and I in you, that they also may be in us, so that the world may believe that you sent me. This burning desire to belong is not going to let up. It can be appeased. It can be eased. It can be temporarily assuaged. But it will always feel, there won't be any security or peace in it. It will always feel like it's under imminent threat at all times. If the fig leaves slip, I'm going to get laughed out of the herd. If I acknowledge the obvious elephant, I'm going to get run out of the, if I admit that there's a question, I'm going to get labeled, and there's always going to be all this fear and anxiety and doubt and unbelief and bondage, because the only way out is to believe on the Lord Jesus, to live as he lived, to be willing to die as he died.
Yeah.
Because we know that we will rise as he rose, because to die in the game is just to lose the avatar.
That's so freeing when you come to that revelation. And that's how you can really become bulletproof. Especially when you know, like, man, what my assignment is.
Yeah.
I can move freely and understand and know that to live is Christ, to die is gain.
Yeah.
And when my time is up, it truly is up. And that's when Paul can truly say, like, I'm ready. Like, I've ran the good race.
Yeah.
I fought the good fight. I know what crown I was pursuing. Yeah. Man, that's good.
What frustrates me is not the ones who are going to listen to this and exit out early. It's not the ones that are going to listen to this and be like, what are they on about? It's not the ones that are going to doubt what we're saying. I want them to doubt it. I want them to doubt it bad enough that they go look for themselves. It's not any of those. What frustrates me, if I let it, is knowing that there are some that are going to go, that's good. That's true. But I wish I could transplant myself into your mind for just a minute, just to give you a taste of knowing how good this is and how true it is. Like, I'm not saying that because we're saying it. I'm saying it because, dude, and God help me, because my sin is always before me. I believe I live in a constant awareness of my own depravity, knowing what manner of man I am. I say none of this to glorify myself. I pray that is self-evident. But when I tell you, you don't know how you're going to respond to situations until you're in them. So I don't know how I'm going to respond to my dying moment until I'm there. But I am going to tell you this. I've died 1,000 deaths in my lifetime pondering that moment, obsessing about it, spiraling about it, avoiding it, a couple of times running toward it. I've died 1,000 deaths that I never had to die, because of being so obsessed with my own mortality and the speed at which life seemed to be passing by. And a couple years ago, it just left. The fear of death just left my life. And that includes, to a large degree and an increasing degree, the fear of ego death, the fear of reputation death. See,
Come on.
First it was the fear of death.
Yeah.
Like, it was just like, it just left as this awareness increased that I am not it. That's not me. That's a skin. As the awareness increased that this is not that. That I'm not from here and I'm not going to here. Yes, I am from this planet, this rock, and I'm actually going here. The New Jerusalem is coming down, but I'm not from this realm, and I'm not going to this realm. I come from a higher plane, and that's where I'm headed. And to a large degree, increasingly, that's where I'm living. And as that awareness increased, and first I became aware of the observer, and that's step one. Even psychiatrists and psychologists will tell you that. It's good to become aware of the observer and do your best to play the part of the observer as often as you can. Watch yourself moving through life. Take stock of yourself doing what you're doing, and realize that it's not actually for all the marbles, that you will actually survive and respawn and all of, like, become the observer more and more. But then I started to grow out of that, and I started observing the observer. Because the observer is me. It's the me God created, right? The awareness. But I'm seated in heavenly places with him. I can look through his eyes too. And as I started to observe the observer, and I know that's a weird concept, first I became aware that I'm not the avatar playing the game. And I became aware that I'm the observer, and the observer has the controls, and that's you in some real way. We're co-creators with him and all of that. And I'm creating a lot of this reality as I'm moving through it, all that stuff. But then I started to realize that even that one, the observer, is not the ultimate one.
The final layer, yeah.
Who is just lost in Christ, attached to nothing, needing nothing, wanting nothing, chasing nothing, loving everything, loving it all, and just longing for total reuniting, total reintegration, all creation, all. And as I became aware of being able to look at times through the eyes of Christ and watch the observer watching the avatar and truly sit outside of time and space, be seated with him in heavenly places. As I became aware of that, the fear of death left, and then the fear of all the little deaths started leaving. The fear of being called a heretic, the fear of being not having the right car, the fear of it's all leaving. It's a slow fade, but it's happening. And it's so free. And that's what I'm praying. Somebody can catch it. I'm praying that our hearts, our souls, our spirits will connect somehow through this screen, and somebody will just for a moment catch a glimpse of how that kind of freedom could be.
Yeah.
And decide it's worth it to give it a try, to break the game by acknowledging, you know what I mean? That the things, that the boogeyman, and I pray that takes place, because that's the way out of this trap that Babylon has on us.
It's the only way out.
Of having to be in these teams that are constantly pitted against each other for the amusement of the crowd in the stands, watching the gladiatorial drama play out. And we don't have to do that. We don't have to participate in that. We can break free of that. The Christians in Rome nearly shut the empire down. They pretty much got the games shut down because the spectacle ceased when people walked in and smiled at the lions and sang hymns while they were ripped from limb to limb. What do you do? Who's going to cheer and ask for more of that? They're going to go home and think about their loyalties and who they worship and why. You can break the game. You can shut it down. Empires have crumbled and risen over this. There is a living God who lives within us, and when we come together in the only team that matters, the tribe of the redeemed, it literally breaks the simulation and Babylon burns.
We taught you that there is another way for you to not continue to be a slave to this system that is screaming at you through so many different forms and fashions to stay conformed.
Yeah.
But I'm just reminded, the words of Paul, be not conformed to this world, but be transformed. And it starts up here.
Yeah.
And so as you listen to this, I pray that a seed has been planted.
Amen. Every time your spot on the team is threatened, every time you feel defensive, every time you feel the need to protect, I pray you ask yourself, what am I protecting and why? What am I afraid of and why? Every time somebody triggers you, before you rise up, before you set them straight, just pray, why? What am I protecting? Don't stay in the game. We love you. Father, let this word take root and bring forth good fruit. Pharaoh, the Lord says to you, let my people go. Church, the Lord says, come out of Babylon. Come out of her, my people. Father, let the word do its work by the Holy Ghost and set your people free. In Jesus' name.